But now, the reason I wanted to get into this is because I read an incredible story about him. He pulled off one of the greatest and legal musical heists in history. Usually you hear tales of record labels getting one over on the artist. And in this one, Frank Ocean, he literally got a huge one over on Def Jam. Of all the record labels he could get one over on, he got it over on Def Jam. You are listening to Tape Spaghetti, the podcast about the twisted and tangled innards of the music industry. Some of this content may not be for all listeners or viewers, so if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. We'll just catch you on the next one. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode of Tape Spaghetti. I, as always, am Scott Marquardt, and I am joined this time by just Blake Weiland. No
Just
guest
me.
this time.
No
Feels
guest.
a little lonely in here with just the two of us.
I know. Just the two of us. We can make it if we have.
But it was fun, spicing up our relationship by bringing in a third.
Of course.
Maybe it's not something you do every time, but it's nice here and there.
It's I don't know if you were aware of this, but wasn't my first time with Joe. Okay.
Joe's a good fella.
Him and I have podcasted, I don't know, between me guesting on his show and him guesting on mine, probably 10 times.
Wow.
Maybe. Yeah. So it wasn't our first rodeo, but it was his first rodeo for not talking about gear. So there was that.
I think he did a good job. It's a little bit new for all of us. There are probably some listeners out there that don't listen to other guitar gear podcasts like the one that you host. And I've been on a variety of them over time. So for all of us, it's a new thing, not just nerding out about guitar gear, but I think it's really fun. It's nice to talk about, music itself and it's not just the tools that make it.
It's kept things, I will say it has reignited a lot of things for me that I didn't realize needed reignited. Mm-hmm. And this story we'll get into today, which we don't have to get into right away, was a good example of that. This dove me headfirst into territory I was not familiar with, and I forgot how much I liked doing that. Yeah,
that's what's so fun about doing these things. It's really fun doing the research and learning all this stuff, and then yapping about it to one another. I quite enjoy it. You were at a music festival this weekend, right?
I was. Yeah, I was at Farewell Fest in Redmond, Oregon, which is right next to Bend, Oregon. Sturgill Simpson. Mm-hmm. So that dude and his band, absolutely incredible. They played 2.5 hours straight. But that is less impressive than it sounds, because when I say straight, I don't mean they played a song and then they played another song. I mean, he didn't stop jamming the entire time.
Yeah, the whole way through.
Yeah.
You know this, but for the listeners, in my old career pre-Stringjoy, when I was working in the music business proper, one of our A&Rs at the company that I worked at, Kim Bowie, was who brought on and sort of discovered Sturgill Simpson. And I remember we had this 4-band showcase. One of our bands was on it. It was kind of like a bunch of different artists that were on the management group or the label that were on it. And Sturgill was maybe second of 4 or something. It was really, really early. Kim had just kind of discovered him, and he started playing, and I had no idea who this was or anything. I was just there in the room, working. And it was one of those instantly oh, damn, this is real cool. Granted, at the time, we hadn't seen kind of that resurgence of 80s, 90s, country, or 70s, 80s, 90s country. And so I don't think I understood that it would be as big as it became at the time, but I was whoa, this is something. It was this little room called the High Shoot. The thing above Mercy Lounge back in the day. It's changed its name since then. And yeah, he just absolutely crushed that room. It was barnstorming and amazing. And then, everything after that, I was yep, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he started out, for the listeners who aren't familiar, I'm a Sturgill super fan. He started out pretty traditional country, and now he even said it at the show. He's like, sorry to everyone who thought you were coming to a country music festival. Cause it was just rock and roll the whole time. He's like, I've been saying it for 11 years. We just play American music. That's what we do. At one point they were doing this kind of stoner rock jam thing, and they broke into Rage Against the Machine. Which song was it? My brain just failed.
Bulls on Parade, Killing in the Name.
Killing in the Name. Yep. Just started playing that riff and I was like, am I really going to get this right now? Then they kind of switched out of it, but it was a nice little kind of teaser thing.
As I understand it, I think Sturgill's living in Paris right now.
Oh, okay.
Through the grapevine of some friends of mine that know him fairly well. Which is wild. I don't know if he speaks French or if he just is Sturgill Simpson there. And they're like, wow, this is just what I want.
I think Stringjoy, he's very much strikes me as the type of guy he just constantly just does whatever he wants to do. That's what he does. And I love that.
Hey, man, if you can make that work for you in life, that's the way to do it.
Yes. But it was a pretty stacked lineup. I don't want to go through everything, but I do want to give a shout out to Charles Wesley Godwin and crew, specifically Amico DiMuzio, because they're the ones who got us into the show. And it was great. That guy crushes it. He's another one of my favorites, and they are artists of ours. So it was a really nice
seen
time
you with the
all
hat.
around. Yeah. And they play. It was a good sound and set they did with their Stringjoy strings up there on that stage.
Well, I was in Indianapolis visiting my parents, and I have nothing musical to share about that exactly. Indy's where I'm from. Great city, not a musical city. I was kind of bored on Saturday, so I was like, let me see what's happening around town. Maybe there's something to go to. Nothing was happening. Nothing. I mean, nothing. And not like Nashville. Nothing is like, Jelly Roll's playing at Bridgestone and, Brian McKnight's playing, over here. And like, I don't really want to go to any of those things. So nothing's going on, tonight. But Indianapolis, nothing was nothing. Nothing musical at all. There's a great little jazz club called the Chatterbox. That is what I would have gone to check out. But then by that time, I was just at home laying around. So I didn't do anything.
I've heard the Slippery Noodle is a famous haunted venue there.
The Slippery Noodle, yeah.
I know of it. I've never been there. I've heard about it a lot from our friend Brian Wampler.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, Slippery Noodle will do some cool, a lot of different genres. I always think of it as like a blues spot, but I guess there's more than that happening. Chatterbox is a great jazz club. The Jazz Kitchen's a good jazz club, but that's more like a dinner and a show jazz club. And the Chatterbox is nice. That's always cool. But the Chatterbox is like a true dive bar that is a jazz bar. And that doesn't exist in a lot of places. Like I'm a huge jazz fan. I don't think I've actually talked about that on the podcast yet, but it'll happen in the future. But most jazz clubs you go to these days are either like, white tablecloth dinner clubs, or it's like a place that's very much kind of touristy, like in New York. And a lot of times where like they usher you in and, get you out. It's really tight quarters. But this is like the way a jazz club probably would have felt in like the 40s or something. It's great.
Very cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
That's enough rambling from me. Why don't you tell me something about something?
I can never get enough rambling from you, but I will tell you something about something, and I don't really have any elegant segues into this, but I want to ask you, this is a silly question because I'm sure the answer is yes, but you're familiar with Ocean's 11?
Am I? Oh, dear Blake. I have probably seen each of the Ocean's movies certainly hundreds of times. They're the most rewatchable movies ever. I constantly rewatch them. I'm kind of obsessed. Like anytime my wife's not around, that's like what I'm watching. I have the Ocean's 12 soundtrack on CD in my car right now. So it's just the only CD I keep in my car in case I like go out of service.
I asked that question because I already knew that answer.
Okay.
I already knew this about you.
I was like, how did this not come up? Let me tell you.
No, it very much has, but you needed to tell the listeners, which is why I phrased it that way. I knew you were a fan, and I knew you were a fan of Danny Ocean and his incredible heist that he pulled off. But I'm not sure if you're aware of another Ocean who pulled off another insane heist. I know you
Billy
know
Ocean?
No.
Do you know Billy Ocean, the 80s like kind of schlocky crooner?
Oh, I do now. Yes.
R&B,
Yes. Anyway. You had to remind me, but I was like, Billy. No, now I got him. Yep. Now there's another crooner of sorts, Frank Ocean.
Oh, that Ocean, the much more popular Ocean in modern times. I'm 190 years old, and so that's why I'm like Billy Ocean, and you're like, no, Frank Ocean. Very popular in the last 15 years.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, despite him being very popular in the last 15 years, it's not part of the scene that I typically seek out. I like my metal, I like my punk, and I like my country, and that's where I typically gravitate towards. But I was still aware of Frank Ocean. I knew some of his music. But until this episode, I hadn't dove in deeply. But now the reason I wanted to get into this is because I read an incredible story about him. He pulled off one of the greatest and legal musical heists in history. Usually you hear tales of record labels getting one over on the artist. And in this one, Frank Ocean, he literally like got a huge one over on Def Jam. Of all the record labels he could get one over on, he got it over on Def Jam. And some
Russell
of it
Simmons seems like a tough cookie to get one over on.
I think so. And I think, we'll get into like the details, and some of the details are a little bit of hearsay because it's like contract stuff that nobody would actually be privy to. So there's a lot of guesswork going on here. But it does seem to me that a lot of the reason he was able to pull this off is because they weren't paying close enough attention. And he was.
Good for him. No, you're totally right. Usually these stories are how the label, took advantage of the artist in some one way or another. I know, and we'll do a podcast on it. Famously, Neil Young got one over on his label in a somewhat maybe similar way. I'm not sure. I don't know this story, so I'm super excited. I know Frank Ocean. I remember when he shot out of a cannon like in the early 2010s, and it was just like everywhere all of a sudden. And frankly, I have not heard as much about him in the last 8-10 years.
Well, spoiler alert, he hasn't done much since 2016. I don't think he's done anything since 2016 because he doesn't have to. Is the reason I'm gathering. But,
fair enough. It's nice to know that that's why. Like, it's weird if you ever like pull up the Smashing Pumpkins catalog. It's weird to be like, oh, they've been putting out albums this whole time. They never stopped putting out albums. Everyone just stopped listening to them. Not everyone. Some people listen, but broadly, people treat them like Soundgarden or something, where it's just the first couple of records.
Yeah, it's weird because he's never as if it's not a whole band. We tend to think of Billy Corgan as
Billy's kind of
yeah, but it is interesting when you run into that. But yeah, with Frank, he very much only did the first couple records and seemingly just dropped off the map, seemingly intentionally. But for those who don't know, who is Frank Ocean? So he was born Christopher Edwin Breau, and it's pronounced Bro, but it's spelled the French way.
Is it Breaux?
Yep. So I had to be like, is that how it? I had to do some Googling. But he was born in 1987, moved to New Orleans at age 5. He grew up listening to R&B, which is largely what I wouldn't say he's strictly R&B. There's definitely hip hop and other influences in there. But I would say that if you were going to try to broadly categorize Frank Ocean, it'd be R&B. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So as a teen, this was near and dear to my heart because I did this with recording radio shows, recording on cassette tapes on a Fisher-Price karaoke machine. You remember those little things?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Who didn't have one of those, and why are they still not the number one selling toy of all time? I don't know. Those things are great. But that was like literally his first start. But as he became a teen and got older, he started using Fruity Loops and Logic and doing all the stuff on the computer as we become accustomed to now. So
I miss when they just called it Fruity Loops.
I do too.
Now it's FL Studio, which fair enough, kind of an odd name.
Fruity Loops. But I mean, maybe they had something going on with Kellogg. Maybe, I don't know.
I just miss when like software in general had ridiculous names. Where it was like Cakewalk was a big one, and Fruity Loops. Like that's just in like the DAW world. And then at some point, everything got real professional,
real polished. Thanks, Apple. You're just named after a fruit. Why can't everybody else be named after a fruit? Gotta make things all fancy.
Apple is chiefly responsible for making the whole world gray. They made gray really cool, and then McDonald's is gray. And you're like, what? This used to be like red and yellow and fun. Now everything's just sleek and gray and soulless.
Cars are all gray, white, whatever. I say this as a guy who drives a white RAV4. But anyway, he moved to after he moved to New Orleans. He at 5 he wasn't responsible for the move, obviously.
Sure.
But they were in New Orleans during 2005. Can you imagine what happened in 2005 that maybe caused him to have to leave New Orleans?
Wait, I got this. Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nailed it. Yep. It actually.
Next, Alex, I'll take natural disasters for 800.
What caused all the guitars to float down the Cumberland River? Yeah. Anyway, Katrina actually destroyed his house. So he literally had to leave. There was nothing left for him, as so many were affected by that. But in this case, it ended up being kind of a blessing in disguise because he moved to he moved to Los Angeles. That's where he moved to. I want to say everybody moves to New York. Like, move to New York. No, he moved to LA.
Did you have in that time a bunch of people move to Portland from like the New Orleans diaspora, or was that too far away?
That's too far away.
Okay. In Indianapolis, even, there were a ton of people like that started showing up and enrolling in school and stuff where you'd be like, oh, you're from New Orleans. Like, they just went everywhere. So many people lived in New Orleans, kind of pre-Katrina.
Oh, well, I think we think of Katrina as like, oh, that was a big bad thing that happened and we were young enough too, that it was hard to contextualize a little bit, but it really just like leveled a huge portion of a major US city. So yeah, they had to go somewhere.
New Orleans now, and I love New Orleans, but it's like kind of tourism's like its dominant thing. And before that, like it was like Chicago by the sea. Like, it was a major industrial and trade hotspot. And it can be a little bit of that, but it lost a lot of it.
Well, so much of the infrastructure was just destroyed. And then they realized, this is kind of a sketchy place to rebuild all this stuff for that reason. So it's not quite back to that level, although it's obviously much better than it used to be. And I really, really want to go there. It's one of my top cities I want to visit for sure.
The only thing you won't like is how hot it is. But do you know why they moved to LA? Because that seems like a fairly far away, spot to relocate to. So
from what I could gather, it was mostly just about he got into a community college and, he only intended to stay there for 6 weeks initially. So it wasn't supposed to be a full-time thing. Okay. But he enrolled in community college. He took a job at Subway and was like, wait a minute, I like doing music stuff. I think I'm in the right place.
He was a sandwich artist before he was an artist?
That's right. He was selling you the not foot-long footlongs.
Wow. Yeah, they're like 10-inch, 9.5-inch footlongs.
Yeah, exactly. $5 not footlongs is what he was doing. Yeah. It's not his fault, though. We can't blame him for that. No. But so he's hustling. I don't know exactly, because Frank, a lot of this, again, is kind of hearsay and a lot of reading between the lines, because Frank is notoriously very private. Yep. And he kind of uses that mystery and that, we're so used to artists these days being out there and telling you what kind of Subway sandwich they're eating for lunch. And he very much does not do that at all. He's very mysterious. And I don't know how much of that is he wants to be versus leveraging that mystery. Sturgill actually kind of does similar things. Sure. Sturgill famously doesn't have social media. He did for a brief time in 2020, in which him and I briefly exchanged some comments about his souped up Subaru WRX. But that's the last I remember him being on social media. But Frank is similar. He might have social media. I actually didn't look into it, but he almost certainly doesn't manage it if he does. So
right.
But he's working it. He's meeting the people, kind of like Chris Christopherson. He's doing the things, and he ends up being a ghostwriter for Justin Bieber, John Legend, Beyonce, Brandy, just a huge list of very, very popular people at the time. And eventually he comes across a fella named Tricky Stewart. Are you familiar with Tricky Stewart?
I'm not familiar with Tricky Stewart.
You may not be. I wasn't, but then I realized I was, because he was a 5-time Grammy winner, a huge record label executive and producer. He worked on Umbrella by Rihanna, All the Single Ladies by Beyonce, stuff with Justin Bieber, Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige. Like, it was like, whoa, okay, maybe I didn't know who you were, but I've definitely heard your work many times. So he got a publishing deal via Tricky Stewart, and that really got him like really into the industry. And they started coming to him because they really liked his lyrics, and he could write all these different hooks for all these different styles of artists. As you heard there, that was all kind of poppy stuff, but very different in the pop realm. And so in 2009, he met Tyler, the Creator. Now in 2009, I'm not sure.
He was a part of that like Golf Wang Wolfgang group.
We're getting into
Odd Future. Yeah.
Odd Future. See, you're so much more into this than I am. I was like, I
don't know that I'm into it. I was like, there.
What is Odd Future?
Oh man.
Yeah.
What was it? Odd Future Wolfgang.
Come on.
No.
Yes.
Was it that? Okay.
Yeah. Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All.
That's right. I remember like typing out that acronym at the time because it was such a long. They were such a cool thing that emerged at that time.
Well, I actually want to get into that specifically because I was so unfamiliar with it. I found it very, very fascinating. Some people compared it to like a punk rock zine kind of come to life because I was like, what is this? It's not just a music group. It's not. It's like a whole media entity and kind of fashion enterprise, and it feels somewhat unofficial. Like I don't know if anything was ever written in stone for these people. So we got Tyler, the creator. He's the leader. He's a producer and a rapper, and some people just like to say provocateur. So I think that's fairly accurate for Tyler.
Earl Sweatshirt, of course.
Yep, Earl Sweatshirt, Haji Beats, Left Brain. Domo Genesis, who I actually was familiar with all of those people up until Domo Genesis. I wasn't as focused, but
two of those were the internet. That was maybe Haji and somebody else. It's been a long time. I haven't dusted off this part of my memory. And
we're getting to that. Sid, SYD. That's another member. He also was the founder of the internet.
Okay,
which not.
I thought that was Al Gore, Blake.
Yeah, not Al Gore. Despite what was that? Where did that joke come from? I forgot.
Oh, we don't have to go into that.
Okay. I guess we won't go into it, and I'll just have to wonder because I don't remember. We got Taco, another member I wasn't familiar with, and then which I guess he's the hype man and comic relief. So maybe I was familiar, just not by name. And then Frank Ocean, who's very much the outlier. All these other guys are fairly aggressive, fairly confrontational and in your face and very punk rock in a lot of ways. And Frank's the kind of smooth, laid back R&B guy.
Yep.
So they were known for like recording in their bedrooms, which I feel like maybe was a precursor to some of the things we've talked about with like the SoundCloud rap stuff on previous episodes. Or maybe it was happening kind of at the same time. And I feel like they really brought skate culture into hip hop. Hip hop had been going into skate culture more. I remember that even happening when I was a kid, but I felt like skate culture didn't get injected into hip hop until about this time. And maybe they're not solely responsible for it, but that was a big part of what they did.
It was a big piece. I always remember them being like analogous in some ways to like CKY and what became of like the Jackass world once they kind of put their twist on it, where you had music and skating and media and all this stuff just kind of all together.
I think that is a really good comparison. It's very different style of music, obviously, but very similar in attitude, very similar in we're just going to do it ourselves and see what happens.
Yep.
And like CKY, I know they kind of pulled this from the Dead Kennedys a little bit, but that logo became pretty iconic.
Yep.
Well, the Odd Future donut became very iconic. And that was something I saw floating around and was just like, what is that? I don't know what that is.
Yep.
What are these kids doing? I don't know what that is. That's not Merle Haggard. I don't know what that is. So yeah, in fact, some people compared it. I got a note here because I thought it was funny. It's interesting you bring it up without seeing my notes here. Wu-Tang Clan meets Jackass meets Supreme.
Yep. That's about right.
Yeah. So yeah, he met Tyler through doing some studio sessions. He didn't rap. He didn't scream. He didn't skate. And that seemingly is kind of what made him stand out from the group. So he became, even though he was the odd one out in Odd Future, he became, other than Tyler, I think the most iconic member of the group.
Yep.
So this really shattered some things. And one thing we're going to bring up a couple times in this episode, which is a little bit, it's funny how you can stamp the internet in these ways. Tumblr really mattered back then. Their Tumblr was all of their Tumblrs and associated Tumblrs were super important back then.
The worst transaction in business history, probably.
Do we have time?
Marissa Mayer bought Tumblr for like $10 billion at Yahoo. Whoa. And then eventually sold it for $3 million.
Oh, that's
to the guy who founded WordPress.
That's a pretty bad deal.
Yep, it was a very bad deal. They took it over and then they were like, you know what we need to do is get rid of all the not safe for work elements of Tumblr, which was mostly what Tumblr was for. And so without that, everyone just left.
Kind of like when OnlyFans was going to do that, 2 years ago?
Yep.
And then they were like, never mind. our business will collapse.
That was the whole business. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Which they didn't intend to start it to be that.
No, it was going to be a Patreon competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But when you allow anything, anything's going to show up.
That's the thing.
Yep.
They always say with the internet, like most elements of like technology or the internet were like first developed for pornography.
That's what I've always heard that. Yeah. I've always heard that. And I think it's probably true. Mm-hmm. So what happened after that? So Tyler, I think we don't really need to get into. He's probably the biggest artist that came out of that whole thing. Frank Ocean, coming along kind of second there. Sid formed the internet, which I think people know a little bit. They probably know the internet more than they know Sid, but still a really big deal. And then the rest of the members, other than Earl Sweatshirt, kind of seemingly fizzled out a little bit. And by 2015, the whole thing didn't formally break up. There was no big split where Odd Future was
You stopped
over.
hearing about it. You heard about the individual members after that, but never really about Odd Future.
They just kind of drifted into their own lanes, basically.
But they were, and I do want to say, like, at the time, this certainly inside of the music industry was just like this revolutionary thing that nobody had really seen. Wu-Tang's a really good comparison in a lot of ways, but like they were very DIY. They were super popular and they were putting out their own stuff in their own ways. Like it felt like this really, really cool and unique approach that we hadn't really seen before, at least in like that level of mainstream success with it.
Yeah. Well, that is how Frank ended up getting signed to Def Jam. Now, this is the part that's really weird to me. I mean, there's a few things that are weird to me about it, but he gets signed to Def Jam, and seemingly, according to everything I can read about it, they basically just ignore him. They're like not. So he's part of Odd Future. It's very popular for all the reasons we just talked about. And then they're just like, okay, we got him. And then they're not talking to him. He's just kind of out there in limbo, which I don't know.
That happens a lot. Yeah. Okay. The usual reason for that is that in a lot of label situations, like the A&R guys can have a lot of latitude in what they want to sign and take chances on. And so I think the most common way that happens is the A&R guy got canned and he was the only one there like that you were working with. He was the only one there that like got it and believed in it and was like, I think this could be big. And that stuff just gets like nominally handed over to the other people at the label. And a lot of times they're like, what the heck is this? I don't know. They don't have that connection of like, or vision of what they see for it. And so it just gets shelved. And it's one of those things where the label still has your next 3 albums, but they don't want to pay for you to make them.
You're right. And so you're just kind of there.
In some cases, I worked with a guy who, at a restaurant many years ago, who had a band that was signed to a major label. I can't remember which one, but they were managed by like Maroon 5's manager, and they cut a record for the label. And then this exact same thing happened. A&R got canned. No one else really got it. And so they couldn't play those songs anymore. They had signed like a 360 deal. So the publishing and all that was all linked to the label. And so the label's like, yeah, we're not going to put it out. Like there's no one here that really wants to do that. But we still own it. It's ours. We paid to make it. So we own those songs now.
Right. And we're not going to do anything with them, but they're ours anyway.
But they're theirs. It was work for hire effectively. Right. And so, yeah, they just, you don't have those songs anymore. Which sucks.
That's horrible. Yeah. I want to encourage anybody who's listening to this because this happens over and over again. It's something that I talk about a lot on various podcasts. If you are an artist and you are looking at signing, even with any label, doesn't matter who it is, major, indie, whatever, really read your contract. And if you don't understand it, figure out how to understand it, whether you got to, shell out for a lawyer or ask Chat GPT how to understand it, whatever you got to do, try to understand what's in that contract. If there's any part of it that's confusing to you, you probably shouldn't sign that. And it's not,
well, and sometimes you should have a lawyer.
You should have a lawyer. Yeah, you really should. A lot of people just seem to not.
Yeah.
And that's how these things happen.
And things like that structurally, like what I'm talking about specifically there, are a little bit hard. Like even with like a good contract, the label paid for you to make something. The best way you could do it, I guess, would be where it reverts if it's not put out after a certain period of time. Like the label effectively is buying like a 2-year option to put it out, and then it reverts to you. They probably just wouldn't do that. I mean, the hard thing is that like when, it's easy to see like the TLC situation, right? Where they signed this contract and then like, the label made way more money than they did and be like, oh, this is terrible. But at the time that they signed it with the label, they didn't have any power. They were just like a random group that somebody was taking a chance on. Mm-hmm. And so it'd be hard for them to really hardball the label and say, we have to have this term, this term, this term, and this term. If they really wanted you, if you had like the Kid Rock situation where you like drummed up a bunch of interest and you were in a bidding war with a bunch of different labels, totally. But if not, you don't have any power, it's...
And where I would go with that is if you are at the point where you don't have any power and you don't have the leverage you need to try to secure the kind of contract that's going to be good for you, it may not be even the time for you to sign. Like maybe you need to drum up some more attention for yourself. Now, back in the day, that would have been harder or almost impossible in some cases. But these days, I mean, we've got some guys we're talking about right now. Odd Future didn't. They kind of paved a path that you could follow in a lot of ways. Now, it's not easy. This stuff is never easy, but maybe it's not time for you to sign that I'd rather sign no contract than a bad contract, personally. Mm-hmm. That's just how I view about it. But I'm not saying that Frank's contract was bad. I don't actually know the details of it, but he certainly didn't like it. And we're going to get into how he figured his way out around that. Mm-hmm. Which was nice. So they're not really paying attention. He releases Nostalgia Ultra, which is a mixtape. And it's got samples from MGMT, the Eagles, Coldplay, and a bunch of other people. Totally unlicensed. Totally didn't get permissions for any of that stuff. But it's not an official release. Mm-hmm. It's just on Tumblr. That's where he put it up. But it exploded. And later, obviously, it got official release, so I'm assuming all those samples got cleared, because that's where I went back and found Novocaine, which is just a banger. It's so good. And this whole mixtape just skyrocketed Frank, even beyond the success that Odd Future had. Just all of a sudden, Def Jam cares. They're paying a lot of attention because of his Tumblr blog, which is just so funny to talk about. That'd be like, oh yeah, the guy's Vine took off.
Yeah, mixtapes were funny even back then, but now they're kind of even a sillier thing. Like there's an old tradition of mixtapes in a lot of like urban music. That's weird, a weird way to call it, but like hip hop and R&B basically. Mm-hmm. As like literally a physical thing that you'd pass around, but it definitely is like meant to be something underneath an album in terms of like canon, Mm-hmm. But at this time, they were being released that way. And at this time you're putting it out on Tumblr. So it's like less of a release. So it does feel like something less than an album. But eventually when you have streaming in the picture, you're like these things, what is an album? It's just a grouping of songs. There's nothing more to it than that in a lot of ways. So you're like, what's the difference between a mixtape and an album?
Mm-hmm. I think in this case, the difference is one's official and like everything's licensed if you use samples or whatever, and the other's just kind of a thing that it's a file that you can get somewhere else on the internet, basically.
Yeah.
So yes, he releases Nostalgia Ultra again on Tumblr. I don't know why that's so funny to me. It just is for some reason. Because I guess it's because it was so relevant and now it's so irrelevant.
Yeah, it's not a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm. He does release an official album with Def Jam in 2012 called Channel Orange. Yep. Again, massive success. Grammy winner, debuts at number 2 on Billboard. The critics love it. The fans love it. Everybody loves it. Everybody's Frank Ocean crazy. Everybody can't get enough Frank Ocean. And he's just, he doesn't want to play the fame game, though. He's not going to the red carpet events. He's not going to be a TMZ darling. He's purposely just, nope, I'm just making music. I'm making art, and I don't want any of the trappings of fame. That seemingly. Behind the scenes, maybe that was a little different story, but he was very much a mysterious figure. And that kind of, I think, I'm a little bit jealous of people that can pull that off, where they can not do the constant grind of social media and still manage to be able to create art and stuff. I guess that's just how good some people are.
you have to have reached a certain level of fame to be able to opt out of things like that and still maintain your success. Like Sturgill, as you mentioned earlier. Like I think a lot of people would like to do that, but you kind of don't have that option when you're starting out.
I've talked to several friends in the country scene who would love to be able to do that. They're like, I hate doing those stupid lip sync videos that I got to do for TikTok, but they say you got to do them. So I do them. And some people are starting to like have fun with them and do them in really silly ways because they're just like, these are so dumb. Jake Worthington's a guy that's blowing up right now, very 90s country style. And he's always just kind of strumming a guitar and singing his song. And you can kind of tell he's not playing. And then somebody called him out on it. And then he was just like, what do you mean I'm not playing? And he's singing his song and he's just like, he would be like shredding, but it's just chords. So he's just playing completely the wrong notes, but the music over the top of it doesn't match.
Amazing.
I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. Good
There's
stuff.
I think it's a Radiohead. It's like Radiohead playing on top of the Pops, if I'm remembering right, back in the 90s. And like Tom York's just like playing at first, and then he starts like just like moving his hands all over while the guitar is still happening. He's like really, really leaning into it.
I love that. Alan Jackson's drummer famously played with no sticks on the CMA
That's
Awards.
right. Yeah.
It's great. I love that kind of stuff. It's
Good
so
for
good.
him.
Yes, so good. Excuse me. Yes, your boy has gotten yet another cold. Sorry, everybody. Lozenge time. Oh,
there you go.
that's what happens when you have kids. It's crazy.
Oh,
Anyway.
constant.
So let's get into the Def Jam contract a little bit. So he needed to do 2 or 3 albums. It's not super specific. Obviously, we wouldn't know this, but this is what it's looking like. The label owned the masters. He was advanced a ton of money, which, as we've talked about before, typically needs to be.
Do you know the
recouped.
advance quantity?
I
Or like
don't.
the count, but maybe like $500,000. I mean, he probably got like a big advance because he was a very a known quantity pre-signing.
Yeah, exactly. What I've heard from people who are not as big as him, getting that are well known but nowhere near Frank Ocean's level. $500,000 is not crazily uncommon.
Yeah, it might have been hundreds of thousands. For him. For a lot of people, it's not remotely that. But
Yeah. So he got a fair bit of money, which obviously he was using because he lived for a long time without seemingly doing anything else. So he was using that advance. But the label had approval power over the way the albums were rolled out, the marketing, the branding, and he doesn't like that stuff. And he said, or at least the articles I was reading said, it was very transactional. It was not like a creative type of relationship like he was used to working in with Odd Future. It was just very like, you do this, we do this. You do that, we do this. We can approve everything, blah, 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 blah.
right.
So he's really not feeling this. And he's going, okay, what do I do? So his contract had him tied in for one more record. And he had to deliver them the final album, and it had to be at least 30 to 45 minutes. So quote unquote album length, new, previously unreleased music, and it had to not be a mixtape. Had to be a very public, normal-ish release available commercially. And the label actually couldn't reject this particular record for some reason. Like,
That's what I was going to ask, because you'd think they could just keep rejecting until they were satisfied, and then it would count as that album.
Seemingly, according to what I'm reading, again, we don't have the contract to actually look at, but they had control over a lot of things, but they didn't get to say what wasn't or wasn't an album if it was released under these particular terms. So what does he do? In August of 2016, he releases a 45-minute visual album on Apple Music called Endless. And it is, I didn't watch the whole thing, admittedly. And I also think that the music in it is better than what like the general public is saying. It's actually, there's some parts on that I'm like, how are you hitting those notes, Frank? Like those are crazy notes. But it's literally just a like black and white video of Frank building a spiral staircase in a warehouse.
I haven't actually seen it. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's all it is. And it's not, I can't remember if it's all one single shot, but I feel like it is. But the music behind it it goes all over the place. It's like ambient and then gets a little more abrasive, then starts having some bigger beats and bass driven stuff. But there's no like, oh, that's the single, because it's all just one 45-minute track. Yeah, I don't know anyone else who's ever released anything like that. Anyway, but it met the legal definition of an album. It hit all those things, and so he was technically out of his contract. It fulfilled it, and Def Jam couldn't demand rewrites. It was out. It was done.
Wow. Because you would think, I mean, typically that would pass through a lot of people at Def Jam that would have to like, you know, okay it and work on it. And they would at least like have the ability to like split it up and create tracks out of it and whatnot.
You know, this is where it's really dicey for me, or not dicey, but really unclear. I'm like, how did this get through if indeed they didn't want it to get through?
Yeah.
I don't really understand that. But it was specifically on Apple Music. It's available on YouTube now. But
that's the one thing I was going to say is that would have been early days of Apple Music, and Apple especially then was spending a lot of money, like throwing a lot of money around to try to bring exclusive things over, you know, like kind of we talked about with Amazon Music and Garth and stuff like that. That's been one of the playbooks of the one of the main things in the playbook of the technology titans is getting exclusive access and gatekeeping certain things. So I could see both Apple throwing a lot of money behind that and Apple wanting to do that, potentially taking some precedence over some of what Def Jam would want. That could have been useful for him in terms of leverage.
Well, you are such a clever man, because we're going to get into some of that.
Okay.
Yes. So the next day, so keep in mind, Endless drops August 19th, 2016. Def Jam era is officially over. The next day, August 20th, 2016, Frank drops his album Blonde via his own label, Boys Don't Cry. And it's an Apple exclusive for 2 weeks, completely funded by him, self-owned, no label involvement other than his own label. And people love Blonde. Like, it's a huge hit. The fans are just clamoring for it. And Def Jam didn't get a penny from it.
Man, that's brutal. It's like, it's one thing just to satisfy the label contract, but then to like turn around and have had this great album in your pocket the whole time. The whole time. And you could make an argument that while it is like self-funded and self-owned, it's like some of that money kind of came from Def Jam. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Not to like intimate anything that happened that, you know, I don't know what the contracts look like or things like that, but yeah, he's got a lot of money like in his pocket from the advances from Def Jam, and you know, how much of a wall is kind of built around those funds as separate from the self funds that he used for the other album.
Well, so while I said, I think Endless is actually more interesting than people give it credit for. It's kind of known as like the screw you to Def Jam, and that's all it's really looked at as. But
it's not like Metal Machine music. No, it's like a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And I watched about 20 minutes of it, and I was like, I'm going to finish this at some point. This is genuinely interesting to me. Not necessarily the actual video, while it is kind of interesting, but the music itself, I'm like, this doesn't seem like a throwaway record to me, the way it's often labeled. It's labeled a throwaway record just to get him out of the contract, which maybe he viewed it that way, but it sure sounds like a lot of work for something that's a throwaway record. You could certainly do a lot less than what Frank did on Endless to get out of this record, or get out of this contract rather. But it isn't as good as Blonde. So that is fair. Now,
so it's like how would you compare it to the Andre 3000 like flute record, like ambient flute record?
It's not as weird as Andre's flute record.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I actually kind of like the flute record for what it's worth. But I actually think Endless is more cohesive than that. I mean, cohesive is maybe not the right word, because it is all over the
flute record is cohesive.
Yeah. Actually, that's probably the wrong word. I like Endless better. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. At least what I've heard so far. Maybe I'll get to the end and change my mind. But the 20 minutes I've heard so far, I like Endless a fair bit. Now here's the Apple part. And this is like, this feels to me, if this is true, that Apple kind of helped engineer this in some ways. Because the rumor is Apple paid Frank $20 million for this exclusive period. And the bigwigs at Apple definitely know the bigwigs at Def Jam, but the bigwigs at Apple is a much bigger company than Def Jam is, even though Def Jam's a big label. Yeah. Currently one of the most valuable companies on the planet. And even back then, it probably was close to that. I wouldn't have to go look in the public filings to confirm that. But Apple has some deep pockets to throw at things. And if Def Jam wanted to come after Frank, the way this was all done, like via Apple, so specifically, I have a feeling that Apple probably would have had Frank's back in the legal department if I had to take a wild guess.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, obviously, who knows? Like, it's just conjecture.
I'm surmising a lot of things here.
I could imagine, even if nothing nefarious is going on, like I was saying earlier, like Frank putting out that visual album and then Apple showing up to be really, really behind it and interested and telling Def Jam, like, we love it and we want to put this out. Might make Def Jam a little less likely to be like, we're not sure about it. But you're like, but Apple super wants it, so green light it, make it happen.
If Apple wants it, then sure. I mean, who cares what we think about it at some point, right? It's Apple. And like you said, at the time, they were throwing around a lot of money, so it wasn't even that weird.
Right.
I don't think that's the only thing. I mean, when did U2 make us all get that song on our phone?
Oh, that was like 2006
around that time,
6 or 7, or I thought it was way earlier. I could be wrong.
Maybe it was. Either way, Apple had been doing weird stuff with artists for a while, and so it wasn't that crazy probably that he was talking to them directly this whole time.
You're right. Songs of Innocence was 2014. Okay. I was thinking about the U2 iPod, like the exclusive bullseye iPod from before.
U2 and Apple been hanging out for a long time.
Yeah, they've been good collaborators.
That's one way to put it. I still can't figure out why they forced me to download that. Anyway, now this is going into some industry fallout. There's not a lot of details here. Apparently, Billboard reported that Def Jam lost millions. Now, is that because they paid Frank millions? To me, it's like, well, they didn't lose millions; they lost out on millions.
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at it. I was going to say the same thing. Like, if they paid $20 million in advance and then they only made $2 million on it, they lost $18 million. If it's just which maybe they did, I don't know. If they just lost out on Blonde, money from Blonde, that's kind of a whole different thing.
I would hypothesize that's more likely. Without again, I feel like we have to asterisk everything with we don't know for sure. But that would make sense to me, is that they just lost out on the revenue from Blonde after investing some money. And maybe they, who knows? Maybe he did get one of the fattest advances we've ever heard of, and he might have made off like a bandit. That is definitely possible. But I don't know how to say this first name. Lyor, Lyor. Is that Lyor?
Lior? I don't know.
Lior. Lior Cohen. He's a big music industry executive. He's currently YouTube's global head of music. He was at Rush Management and Def Jam and Island and Warner. He's been all over the place. And he said Frank's move was, quote, distasteful and disappointing, which sounds like something a record executive would say.
Sure. I mean, it's certainly disappointing.
It's definitely disappointing if you're Def Jam. If you're Frank, it's not all that disappointing. It went okay.
No, I think that also, like, whatever, production studio made Gremlins with what's his face, Peter, the director,
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson also wishes that Gremlins had been Lord of the Rings.
Probably so. Yeah, but I love Gremlins.
Both are good.
Yes. Have you seen Peter Jackson's first movie?
What was it? I've heard about it. I can't remember what it is.
So it's called, the American version is called Dead Alive. I forget the name of the international release. It's the same movie, but it's called something else internationally, if I remember correctly. The most famous scene is where the guy starts a lawnmower, picks it up, and then runs through all the zombies. It's pretty great. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Who knew he had Lord of the Rings in him, and then also had The Hobbit in him?
If you watched, I don't know if I want to get into that right now. It's something.
later.
As a deep Lord of the Rings fan, there's some things with The Hobbit that disappoint me. Let's just put it that way. But
if anybody out there wants to start calling Blake and I Gimli and Legolas, please.
Yeah, I think that's fitting. Yeah, go for it. Or
I need this to be straighter, but I'm on the right path.
Or could we be Frodo and Sam? No?
Mm-mm.
No?
Mm-mm.
I'd be Sam.
I don't want any part of that.
I'd be Sam. I'd carry you.
Oh, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime, man.
I just can't hold that kind of, that's a lot of responsibility.
That is a lot of responsibility. I just want to ask one thing since we're talking about this right now. How come Gandalf didn't just like get him hopped on eagles, just fly him over there? Why they got to walk?
Could have been really easy because they wouldn't have learned anything.
Okay.
It's called the hero's journey for a reason. You need the journey to establish the hero.
I mean,
then the eagle would be the hero.
The Eagles were the hero. The Eagles saved him how many times?
I guess you're right. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Just hop on. Fly over there, drop it in, end of the book. I love Lord of the Rings. I'm just teasing.
They would not have had the friends they made along the way.
That's right.
And as we all know, that's the real goal.
That's the real goal at the end. You're right. You're absolutely right. Gandalf risked everyone's lives so they could make friends along the way. That's what's going on.
That's what life is, buddy.
Yeah.
Being alive is risking your life.
Put that on your arm. Next tattoo.
Oh, can't wait. Yeah, that'd be great.
Live, laugh, love, and to be alive is risking your life.
I'm just trying to make doilies over here, man.
I like it. So, as you can imagine, this had some effects on labels across the board. They all realized that they were open targets for this same kind of thing now that everybody's got this idea from Frank. So, as you can imagine, and you probably saw some of this stuff in your time, the record labels started making contracts that looked quite a bit different. They would add in terms if they, depending on the artist, that it must be marketable or, quote, radio ready. Lots of non-compete clauses extended to several months post-contract and restrictions on simultaneous.
Which those are hard to enforce anymore, so that doesn't really work.
Right, but at the same time, with artists, sometimes, or not just artists, but people see things in a contract and they don't really know if it's enforceable. So it's in there and it makes it sound scary. And they also put in like restrictions on simultaneous releases. So, because that's kind of, you could all make an argument that that's kind of what Frank did. I mean, you didn't record that. You didn't record Blonde the night after you dropped Endless.
Yeah, that's fair. Like from a business perspective, I'm just saying, like it makes sense that if you're like, we're going to put a bunch of money behind this album, even if you're leaving, going somewhere else, we would like at least like 6 months or more to be the most recent album by you,
Yeah. And then there's the other side of like, I hate to ever advocate for the dirty record industry, but the truth is, and you've helped me see a lot of this, is labels are constantly having to put out, quite a bit of money into an artist that even if everything goes exactly right, it doesn't necessarily make them any money. It happens all the time. That's
the thing. When I think about like the music industry compared to like regular business, the first kind of place to jump to is like, oh, labels exist because you need liquidity in the system. And so you could supplant a label by just enabling, artists to take out loans, right? Instead of, and they get to keep control. Same way as we do starting a business. It's the only reason I say that is like, I could take investors who then get a say in what I do, or I can take debt on for myself and then not have to answer to them. I only have to answer to the bank. But the problem with that is if you enabled artists to do that, you would have, instead of a whole lot of artists not getting, as much money as they would like, you would have a whole lot of artists saddled by losing their homes and being saddled by 6 figures of debt. And so what you really need labels to, in the system for is to be gamblers. You just need somebody with enough money to spread it out and take a lot of risks and be able to say, all right, the 1 out of 50 people that make it justify the money that we spent on the other 49. And it sucks to be the other 49 artists, but at the same time, you didn't have to spend that $100,000. The label lost the $100,000. This is simplistic. And, to some of our listeners, I think maybe I come off, I I just know this stuff from the inside a little bit. So I hope it doesn't come off, too much as like pro label. It's not that. I just understand the difficulty in making money in the music industry, really for anybody, but certainly with the label model, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we made a pretty good point that most of the time this doesn't happen. It's usually the label getting one over on the artist. We said that in the beginning. Yeah. And so we're not necessarily just like, record labels are amazing, but in some cases they are necessary, especially if you're trying to record a very expensive to produce project. If you're trying to make things in your garage and you want to do it that way, this day and age, there's never been a better time to be recording yourself and making your own records. I mean, that's how we know who Billie Eilish is. So it's not impossible to DIY your way to the top. And it's probably easier now than it ever has been. At the same time, it's not like labels. If labels absolutely had no place in the industry at all, if they added no value in any way, shape, or form, they would have been gone a long time ago, like Tumblr.
Yeah, you need someone to take the risks. I mean, the same thing exists in the film world, where you have producers and people putting up money to make a project because the director doesn't put up all the money. And then they get some creative say, which usually upsets, the directors, but that's what happens when you're using somebody else's money.
Yes.
Is that, it sucks. You have to kind of answer to them, but it's their money. And this works in any world. It works in a business with investors, same thing. And the only way that you get over that is by the time you're like Quentin Tarantino or something, you get a lot of leverage, but that's because it's really easy for them to say, we know about how much money this is going to make. Even if it's bad, we just know that the next Tarantino album film is going to make a certain amount of money. And the same thing happens when you're, even on your second, third, or fourth record. In a lot of cases in the music industry, but it is hard in the music industry because you do sign up for all those records early on. So that's what got like TLC and some other people like that, is that they're signing an 8-album contract rather than like, all right, we'll take rough terms for the first one, then we'll make our money on the second one, like a rookie contract in sports.
Yep.
All right, soapbox off. I'm getting down. I'm getting off the box. I could ramble about this for a long time.
That is okay. That is fine. I think it helps people understand what we're talking about a little more. I think we need to talk about both sides because we like to tell the story of the artist. That's usually more interesting, but having a better understanding of the full business, I think, is important to understanding the artist's story and understanding how any of this can even happen. So yeah, thank you for that. And then, so moving on from the business side a little bit, we just get into Frank Ocean basically just dropping off the map. No tour. No major interviews, no late night TV performances, nothing. Just, again, some occasional Tumblr posts, secretive merch drops, and just him kind of just being this very interesting, esoteric artist that's just hanging around, doing whatever he wants. And this is one of those weird things where you hear about some artists from the old days, legends even. Like Willie Nelson, I think, had like, I can't remember what it was, something close to 10 albums before Redheaded Stranger or something like that. Like, and there's like a value to constantly be creating. I think you get better at it and it sharpens things, but then there is something about supply and demand. Frank Ocean's got a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. I think if that guy drops an album tomorrow, it's probably going to number one. It'd be enormous.
And I mean, that happened with like Dre, if you remember, like the follow-up to the Chronic 2001, took forever and ever and ever. And then he ended up dropping a different project in between. But it didn't quite live up to the hype, or like the Chinese Democracy.
Yeah, I was going to say
thing with Guns N' Roses as well. That can be tricky. I feel like pushing the pause button for maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe even 6, but it's been 9 now. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah. It's kind of weird because we're so stoked. We're like, we've been in business for over a decade now, and Frank Ocean has not put out an album for almost that same time. And yet we're still here talking about him as if he's like a very relevant artist who's like on the tip of everyone's tongue, because he kind of is. He's one of those rare ones that's able to pull that off. And I think probably the Willie Nelson method works better for most people. But man, if you can pull off the Frank Ocean rarity approach, it sure is valuable in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, a good example to me that it'll be interesting to see what happens with is Bon Iver, who I rather enjoy. He put out an album in 2016, 22 a Million, and then that was it. And it was 5 years before that prior album, before that came out. But he just now put out his follow-up, so 9 years later, basically on the same timetable.
Okay.
As if Frank Ocean were to put out an album this year, and it's maybe too early to see how that one will be reviewed. The one that just came out, because it literally just came out.
Okay.
But that was interesting to see. Like, oh my gosh, 9 years later, you are making music again.
Yeah, Bon Iver is they're an interesting one because they're one of those groups that I would just hear. I mean, him, it's a group, him, it's a project. I don't know. It's kind of, I'm not sure how to describe it. But I'd hear that name over and over again. And finally, by the time I got around to Googling, it was like, oh, there's only one record out. This was years ago, obviously.
Yeah, forever ago.
I was like, wow, that's a lot of hype for somebody who seemingly just came out with one record. It's just weird how that just hits sometimes. And I don't know if it's necessarily, quality is a bit of a weird word to throw around when we're describing art, because some people might listen to Frank Ocean and hate it. Some people might listen to Bon Iver and hate it.
My dad would think it was awful.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a little bit weird to say quality, but there's something that resonates with people, and it's hard to put your finger on, but he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it.
Yeah, right thing, right time. Forever ago, that was it was a cabin album, like a Thoreau style Walden Pond. Like, he recorded this album in a cabin alone, and it had that great story, and it sounds like that. It just connected. It just hit.
Yep. So that is the tale of how Frank Ocean pulled off a Danny Ocean.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's that's pretty much it. That's where the story ends for now. I'm sure there will be more in the future. I'd be shocked if he doesn't resurface at some point with something for people. But go check out all of his records. They're honestly really good, even if it's not your normal speed. All two and the mixtape. The mixtape's available now too.
And the mixtape. Yeah.
Go check them out. It's very interesting work. And check out Endless. Don't buy into the throwaway record concept. I know that's maybe even he thought of it that way, but it's an intriguing watch as a music nerd. Yeah, and that's what I got for you.
I haven't checked that out, so that'll have to be some of my own homework afterwards to check that out. But no, this is awesome. I did not know about this. Like you said, it's cool to see one getting one over, one artist getting one over on the label side, because Def Jam's fine. I'm certain.
Yeah, they're doing okay. Yeah, they're doing just fine.
It's a-okay. So no worries there.
No, they'll be around for a while.
Well, I rather enjoyed that, Blake. So unless there's anything we missed, you want to read us out?
I think that is it. So thank you everybody for hanging out with us for another episode of Tape Spaghetti. Wherever you're checking this out, please leave a review, share it with a friend, tell somebody about it. That's what keeps this thing going. I appreciate everybody that's done that. And we'll talk to you on the internet next week.